Hello, friends. What we have here is called a Box-and-Whisker plot, or a box plot. I usually call it a box plot just because it's faster. So it looks a little strange to start, but we're talking about, for example, the scores on some quiz. The way that we read this, we'll start with the lowest and highest scores. So the very edges of these, what are called whiskers, that's your minimum, and that's your maximum. They stretch as far as the box whiskers go. So just like our other visuals that have number lines, even though we have, it goes from 80 to 95 on this number line, because there's nothing above the 80 or above the 95, it doesn't actually go that far. It stops where the whiskers stop. So these edges here and here. Basically, we follow that down to the number line to figure out what the number is. So the minimum, we follow it down to the number line, and it looks like it's 80, 81, 82 is our lowest. And then our maximum, follow it down to the number line, looks like it's going to be 94. Box plot is nice because it's very easy to read once you get the hang of it. Because similarly, we have our median. And we can find our median very easily using a box plot, unlike basically all the other data visuals we look at. The median of a box plot is where the line inside the box is. It has to be the one inside. So whatever that line inside the box is, we follow it down to the number line. That's our median. So in this case, 90. Now we know that the median is the exact middle value, and so it might not make a lot of sense looking at this that 90, that median line is not directly in the center of our graph. And there's a reason for that. The reason being, we might have a lot of data values that are between 90 and 94. The way that a box plot is set up is it's split into what I call chunks. Each line has a purpose. So the first chunk from the minimum to the left edge of the box, that actually makes up 25% of our data. From the left edge of the box to the median is 25% of our data. From the median to the right side of the box is 25% of our data. And from the right side of the box to our maximum is 25% of our data. So again, it's not completely intuitive because of these boxes, these sections, these chunks are not all of the same size. But that just means that if we have, for example, a total of 100 kids that took this quiz, 25 of them scored between an 82 and looks like an 87 here. Now, we don't know where exactly they fall in that spectrum, in that area, but we know that 25 kids are somewhere in there. On the other side, we have another 25 kids between 92 and 94. That's a much shorter, a much smaller range of scores. But we can still have 25 kids that are in that range. We might just have like 10 got a 92, 10 got a 93, and 5 got a 94, or something like that. So just because the sizes of the chunks don't make sense visually, we are still going to have to work under the assumption that each chunk is 25% of the data, because it is. Now these chunks, these are your quartiles. So we have our minimum, we have our maximum, we have our median. Forgot to label that. The left edge of the box, that's your Q1. And the right edge of the box is your Q3. So looks like our quartile 1 is going to be 87. if we just follow that line down to the edge, and Q3 is going to be 92. And then, of course, our IQR, we just subtract those. So 92 minus 87 is an IQR of 5. We can also find the range from a box plot pretty easily as well, because we have our maximum and our minimum. So if we wanted to do that, we would find that our range was, in this case, 94 minus 82. I'm going to start erasing some of these really chaotic lines in here. Okay, that sort of worked. We just relabel that's a 25, and that's a 25, because that's going to be important for our next couple of questions. So these, a lot of questions that you'll get with the box plot are interpretation questions. So for example, find the score that 50% of the class scored higher than. So if we're talking about scores, of course, higher scores are going to be your bigger numbers. And to determine where that 50% mark is, we use our quartiles. We recognize that each chunk is 25%. So 25 here, 50 here. So our 50% mark is the 90. So 50% of the class got below a 90, 50% of the class got above a 90. That's pretty good. So our 50% mark is our median. Oops. And then find the score that 75% of the class scored lower than. Now again, watch out for your wording here, because sometimes it'll have lower than, sometimes it'll be higher than. So if 75% of the class scored lower than a particular score, we're just going to count up our 25s until we hit 75. So this is the lowest 25, then another 25, then another 25. So our lowest 75% hits here at 92. So 75% of the class got less than 92, meaning that 25% of the class got above a 92. But like we just found, 50% got above a 90, so the scores overall were pretty good. Very good. So this might take a little bit of getting used to really get the hang of these interpretation questions. But the absolutely vital thing to remember is the size, quote unquote, of each of these chunks. If you've got your quartiles, if you've got that each chunk is 25, you should be able to answer any question. See you later.